All right. I think we're good to go. I think we've opened up the doors, so we should have people start filtering in. Looks like a couple people are starting to join. So we'll go over, I guess, ground rules. So first, my name's Brett Krajewski. I am the VP of Research and Growth here at Accelerant Research. We've been hosting a lot of these webinars over the past couple months, these little mini virtual ARC conferences, as we call them. We usually have some really good clients and friends within the industry that, we've asked to come speak and talk about things that are relevant or that they care about. This time we're joined by Susan, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about what she'll be talking about today. But thanks for everyone for joining us. I'll go over some ground rules today. We're at the mercy of tech. So as we saw, we're all at the mercy of tech in this new Zoom world. Please be respectful. There'll be comments. We'll ask for engagement throughout. I'm sure there'll be topics that are a little bit more controversial at times in terms of the state of our industry, but also would love your feedback and connection. And then finally, use this to network and engage, right, and interact. Just makes it better for all of us. Susan and I can go back and forth and riff with you, and whatever comments or questions that we get, happy to address and answer. But that's kind of it for what we'll be doing here today. A few call outs. All of these are going to be found under our resource tab on our website. We have links to articles as well as conferences. So we're trying to contribute a lot to thought leadership, whether that be for accessibility design and accessibility research to hybrid methodologies, a bunch of different things. You'll find a lot of stuff under the article tab, but also all these conferences are under the resources under conferences tab as well. And then that leads to the final point, our next research conference. This is going to be an interesting one. Joe, who is a founder of 2020 Financial, he also served as an SVP for both Kantar and GFK, as well as his daughter, Molly. So they're both part of research. So untraditional. It's going to be an interesting where Joe started 2020 back in the day and obviously, sold that organization. But his perspective of research, and then Molly, who is a researcher that's bounced around to a couple different places throughout her tenure as a researcher. She'll be talking about, what her perspective of research is versus her father's. I know I don't have anyone that really knows what I do in my family in terms of what human factors or what research or UX research is. Susan, I'm sure you can share the same of trying to educate people of, hey, what do we do? So it's interesting to see a father-daughter duo there being able to talk through research and her go to her father about some of the challenges and methodology and scoping that she's had throughout her career, and his extensive experience as well. So without further ado, I will throw it over to Susan. So we'll probably start with Susan, you talking about your background, a little about who you are today, and then we can dive into how did we get there, right? The topic of contention today is the unconventional path to research, UX specifically, and kind of about your role today, and all the different twists and turns that led you to where you are.
Yeah. So yeah, starting with just a little bit about myself. I started as an engineer and ended up somewhere in UX. So as Brett said, my family has no idea what I do. We got in a rental car, was it in March? And my father-in-law was like, "Oh, what's this button for?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you think that button's for?" And he's like, "I think it's for this." And I'm like, "Oh, well, is that what you expected it to do?" And then he was like, "Well, this." And then it went on for a couple minutes. And then all of a sudden he just looks at me and goes, "Stop it." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "This is what you do." And I'm like, "Sometimes yes, sometimes no." So it's great to hear that experience. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you can see the right one. So am I
Perfect.
in the right one? All right. So background started, well, I'll talk a little bit more about the different career paths as we go through it, but a little bit about myself is I've got two little kids. Well, one's not so little, she's as tall as I am, and my son is 9 years old. So we just love summer, love Michigan weather in the summer. In the winter, not so much, but we had gone to their first Tigers game. So that's a picture I threw up there more recently. I love to bake. That's my side hobby is I make cakes, birthdays. I've done one wedding, decided it's too stressful. So do cakes on the side. And I love to travel. My husband has a pilot license, so sometimes we'll do that, but I'm good with anywhere. And my goal is to see the whole country and the world. I have hit 52 states in my time as a consultant and personal travel. So goal is to hit a few more of those, or four, did I say 52? Really know how many states are in the US. 42 states, hoping to hit all 50. And I think I've been to about 15 or 20 countries now. So that's just my background or my hobbies, I should say.
Yeah, and I know you've obviously started as an engineer. What was the start, or why did you how did you land into that role, right? What was the gravitation towards that specific profession? And I think your husband's actually an engineer as well, right?
Yeah.
So how did you start there, and then how did you start exploring what other career paths were out there, right?
Yeah. So I started in engineering, and it's really kind of a boring story. Was my dad is a first generation, moved here and wanted to make sure his kids were successful. So he kind of was like, "Well, I want you to go into engineering, medicine, or pharmacy." That was his like theory in life of that's how you can be successful and know that you're going to be okay. I wanted to teach math, so engineering kind of felt into that category. And that's how I started as an engineer and slowly realized I don't like staring at a computer screen doing CAD work. I really like people. So I gravitated towards that in my first career, and I will just throw that up there. So I started as a planning engineer, was working, did an internship at Caterpillar, more in the manufacturing side, and really loved it because I worked with the assembly lines and worked with the manufacturing teams on what we were doing. And then as time went on, I realized, and then as I started my real job post internship at Stryker, I was doing more of the test engineering, so designing test fixtures, and that was where I spent a lot of time in CAD. I did a little bit of technical writing. Engineers should never write. I sprinkle in commas when I'm done. My husband's an aerospace engineer and he went into law, so neither one of us really use our degrees. He does more than I do as a patent attorney. And then when I was at Stryker, as I said, I started gravitating more towards people. I did more manufacturing engineering because I knew I loved that from my career at my internship in Caterpillar. And from there, I slowly started working more with the assembly line, seeing people getting injured. I was working on a master's in mechanical engineering and decided I didn't want it. And the University of Michigan let me pivot to a master's in industrial engineering and ergonomics. So I started an ergonomics program at Stryker and looked at where people are getting hurt on the line. Where are we causing those injuries? So still doing the manufacturing side of it, but added that little bit of ergo in and started redesigning those assembly lines, used a consulting company to come in to help us and slowly just jumped to that consulting company. So that's how the first pivot in my career happened. Started doing consulting, loved it. Then I had a family, decided I didn't want to be on a plane every Monday morning, so I moved to automotive ergonomics. And while I was on mat leave, they got rid of my position and moved it back to Korea. So they said you could go work in UX. It's kind of like ergonomics, or you can go find a new job. So that's where that other pivot happened, and I went into UX and usability, and I loved it. I still got to use a little bit of that engineering, but it was more talking to people, prying where they're thinking, how they're thinking, and been in UX since then.
And I know you and I have talked, countless times about just like uh, your background and your career skills, and essentially, the way you leave organizations and kind of, and the way you start your next job, right? And
Yeah.
I think you've told me in the past, like, hey, I haven't interviewed in I can't even tell you how long, and they've been formal interviews, right? Of it's what I have to do in order to get it. But I think that is relevant in today's age with how saturated the market is. But obviously a wide spectrum of different roles, and obviously seeing the progression into where UX became your kind of main role, but transferable skills, and also just how you've networked and how you've kind of leaned into different strengths, or even cultivated weaknesses to be uh, benefit you in the roles that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know that was a couple questions there, but I guess starting to um, yeah, how have you morphed and utilized your natural skill set to get to you
Yeah.
where you are now?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about, yeah, those transferable skills are huge. I think, Brett, what you said right there is spot on, is don't leave a company on a bad note, because you might be leaving for reasons you don't love, but those things could change. So I've always left on a good note. I know if I needed to, I could go back to any of those places. And yeah, I haven't really interviewed. I've always had a connection saying, "Hey, are you interested? We're looking for XYZ." And then yeah, you go through the interview process, but it was a step in the door knowing that someone was there. And I'm going to apologize now because our lawn company, of course, just showed up. So if you can hear that in the background, I apologize. Usually they come in the mornings. Um, but yeah, when you step into these roles, I feel like I'm an engineer and people look at me like, "Oh, you're an engineer," when they hear it. And then they're like, "Well, you don't know what you're doing in UX," but it's not. It's so I kind of call it like the imposter syndrome. You're not an imposter. You're using those skills that you know from before, and that degree isn't everything. It doesn't, you don't just apply the skills, you use that mindset. So I still use my engineering mindset, what I learned back in the day, the communication, how to juggle multiple projects. Those skills are what's transferable from career to career. It doesn't have to be that I use CAD. Um, Having this variety of background has helped me be able to communicate and work with engineers and designers and project managers and be able to do those connections easily. Don't be afraid to ask the dumb questions. You're not the stupid one in the room. People are always thinking the same thing you are. They just may not be comfortable voicing it. So I think of that as a way of, as an engineer, I learned that. Picking and digging deeper for that information that you need. Ask those questions. Others are curious. It helps us come in with a different set of skills and open mindset of how those things are working.
And I guess specifically at Ford, right, it is very engineering heavy or human factors heavy, right? I think that was when I got started in UX or human factors back in the day, doing a lot of medical, doing a lot of automotive, and at that time the role was like human factors researcher or
Yep.
along those lines, right? And I still see a lot of that present in the automotive industry, certainly in the medical industry with some of our clients, but also just friends within the industry as well. Um, do you think that was easier for you to transfer getting out of like an engineering lens at a company like Stryker, which sounded like you were doing, some of the stuff that was on the assembly line, but it's almost you were putting that researcher hat on before it was really called a researcher position, right? Where how are you diagnosing, you know, what was going wrong and making sure people weren't getting hurt or making sure people were able to do what they were needed to do and how to optimize that experience. But would love to talk about kind of your early stage career and kind of some of the research skill set that you learned then that you're really seeing get activated or isn't necessarily something that you see some of the more junior or younger researchers have acquired.
So yeah, that's a great example. So at Stryker, you would see that this part always failed, or the quality here was not so great. These rivets were always bad, or the weld was always cracking at these spots. And that's where your research comes in. And that's where I started a lot of my research is, why is it always this one weld? Why is it always this one rivet that's causing us problems? And you start digging deeper and deeper, and that's where that human factor side came in. Oh, well, that weld involves me like reaching above my head to do the weld, or I'm bending at this awkward angle and twisting my back so that rivet isn't going in straight, and that's why it's failing. And so you start digging into what causes that to be an issue repetitively. If it's a one-off, someone had a bad day, something just wasn't working, something wasn't heated up correctly, whatever it might be. But when you see that over and over, that's when you start researching and digging into what's causing it. And then that research takes us to, okay, what can I do to prevent it? What can I do to make that weld not above my head? Or is easier to do above my head? Because sometimes you can't move things, depends on where it is. How can I get to that rivet without having to twist at an angle? Do I do it earlier in the assembly process? Do I find a different way to do it? Do I do it later in the assembly process when I can reach it in a different angle? And all that research kind of plays into what I do now of, okay, why can't users adjust the climate in their car? Or what is it making it so hard to understand when the car is quote unquote driving in your hands-free system versus when you're driving? And that kind of all plays together of digging deeper of what's going on, why it's happening.
And I know something we've talked about is like there's observation into insight, right? And it's just kind of black and white. And, my brother's an engineer, so I think knowing his personality and how he does things, his world is very black and white, right? He's a mechanical engineer. He sees this, he has to do this, right? Versus the researcher, I think you call it merging of minds, right? You have a strategic lens of it of like, hey, there is a cause and effect, but what is the what and the so what and the impact and the why behind it? If you want to go into a little bit more detail about, what you're looking at in terms of your current role, right, at Ford and how you do a bit of that, but would love to know your perspective of the engineering lens of Susan into the researcher expertise that Susan has cultivated over the years, and what you going diving deeper into the merging of minds aspect of things.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a slide really specific to that, but I feel like I'll throw up a picture of a car. But yeah, we're working to merge what's happening to our customer, to our participant, to the engineer, to the researcher, to the designer, trying to combine all of those things into what benefits all of us at the same time. So, yeah, our customers are end goal, but if we can't get it done correctly, it's not going to help them either. So it's not just sharing the data and the research, but it's combining all those efforts to do the research correctly from the start. How do we put it all together? Who do we work with? Who do I need to talk to make sure I'm getting all those pieces of information together? Um, and those decisions inform a lot. I mean, I guess this slide does kind of apply. We're informing decisions from the start to the finish, like where all necessary parties are included, customers from the onset, and everybody else. I don't know if I really answered that question, Brett, but
Yeah, no, I think more so like your perspective too, right? I think, um, we've had long, candid chats about research and the just scraping the surface of insights versus I think, the mentality of like, really digging into the richness and how you've cultivated that, not just from your current skill set and where you're at with Ford and what's needed, right? Where you just talked about like the balancing of business needs and customer needs and uh, generating, money or hitting your KPIs in order to continue doing what you do. But zooming out, and where do you think you've started to cultivate or connect the dots in early parts of your career, and any advice for junior researchers, any advice for researchers in general of how to do that well and have that more strategic mindset, right? Where you're saying it's not just doing the research, but it's you need to incorporate all necessary facts and parties, and you're kind of that conductor, right?
so I take that back to the digging. So dig a little deeper, dig where you fit into that. What your passion is. Is your passion keeping people injury free? Is your passion making something easy to use? Both of these sound like wonderful things, but you've got to figure out what you really want to do and dig into that part of that research. I love helping people make their life a little bit easier, which is why I've kind of moved away from that ergonomics to that usability side of it. Not that I care if people get hurt or not, I do care. I don't want them getting hurt. But if I can make that end product user friendly, that's where I really love it. Um, but I think what you want to do is take that career that you have, or that degree that you have, or that background that you have, whatever it might be, and figure out one, the first question Brett asked me, why'd you go into it? So maybe you went into it because it was a passion. Maybe you went into it because your dad wanted you to go into it. Whatever it might be, you went into it for a reason and you got out of wherever you got out of it. Um, take that skill set that you've developed and keep going, find your passion. And I think part of me, the reason that my career has pivoted so much is my passions have changed as I've grown, as I've learned more about myself and where I've ended up in my life. I've been in DC, I lived in Michigan, I've lived in Illinois. My personality has changed, my mindset has changed, what I love has changed, and I think your career has to change with you. If it doesn't change with you, you're not going to wake up and love going to your job. I love what I do, and Brett and I've talked about this. I love my job. I want to do a little bit less of it every day because there's so many projects going on. But when a new project pops up and my boss will be like, "Hey, who wants to do it?" I'll shoot my hand up and he's like, "Susan, you told me you're swamped." I'm like, "But this one sounds fun." And so you've got to find that part of your career of what sounds fun, where do you want to dig and learn more?
I guess going to changing gears a bit, thinking through like history, present day, and future. If you could kind of reflect on where research was, either when you started entering what research became in your career, or even knowing, dabbling towards putting like one foot over the line and one foot still in the engineering space, where would you say we were at as an industry during that time in your career, in your tenure, in that historical sense, in terms of that reflection?
I think when I started, and maybe it was where I was at, but or when I did it, but we weren't looking at that big picture as much. We spent a lot of time focusing on the next person or the next step. Um, you didn't think about, so if you, let's go back to an automotive example, just because that's where I am now. Using even Ford as an example, but I wasn't at Ford when this was happening. I thought about my designer or I thought about my PM. I didn't think about the customer driving the car. I didn't think about them as much. And that's how my research originally started. And that's part of the reason I changed. I don't really care how the designer feels about my input. I care about how my dad is going to react when he buys his first car. Or my niece is visiting and I've been driving with her, God help me, and her. She is 15 and learning how to drive, and I'm thinking about her. Like, can she use this 2,000 pound piece of equipment and not kill me or my children while learning how to use it on a highway? Um, so that's how it's progressed for me. I don't know if it was because I was a junior researcher or if we weren't thinking big picture. 10, 15 years ago, I wasn't thinking big picture. And now, as time has gone on, I think big picture. I incorporate all those teams into it to make sure that we get not just the customer, but the big picture back here. So starting back here all the way up here.
Hmm. And I guess, bringing that to present day, hearing hey, thinking big picture, thinking about incorporation, thinking about advocacy of I need my partners involved to get budget or to get buy-in and make sure what we're doing is impactful. But how else would you kind of state the current state of the market, whether that be at Ford or just, talking through other research friends? I know you go around Michigan and you see people with ATIS shirts on and you're like, hey, what does your parent do? Uh, but talking about that stuff with colleagues or even currently at Ford, where do you see the state currently as researchers?
So a lot of it is growing, but with the government and everything else happening, tariffs, things are hard. I know that a lot of people probably have seen that Ford's taken out credits. Other OEMs are doing it as well. So a lot of our stuff has gone internal. So we're doing a lot of this research with internal participants versus external participants. It's not my favorite way to do it because no matter how unbiased you try to be, you work for this company. Um, Another way that we're doing a lot of our research, I see, is moving towards the AI side of it. So we're trying, anthropology is what we used to do. I think that's another one I should have brought up is back in the day, I spent a lot of time looking at the size of people, the shape of people, more of the human factors side of it. And I feel like people aren't changing as much as we were 100, 200 years ago. Our heights have kind of leveled out of where we are. We're not having those 6 inch changes in height between our grandparents' generation, our generation, like our grandparents did with their grandparents. So we're more into that. We know what our dimensions are. Um, what was I? Now I lost my train of thought when I went back. But yeah, AI, sorry. I feel like a lot of what we're doing now is we're trying to get AI to help us. AI is not taking over. I don't think it's going to take over. I think it's going to support us. So when I do get verbatims back, I get, hundreds of responses when I send out a survey or when I talk to people and I'm taking notes and I'm just typing what they're saying. AI is helping me analyze that data and it's helping me go through that data a little bit better. I think that is a tool that we'll use going forward. I'm trying to figure out how we can use that tool to help us do the research itself. I don't think that's there yet. I don't think AI knows all the ways a person could adjust the volume or all the ways a person would want to adjust the volume in a car. I know that's a really simple example, but I don't think it's going to take over in that aspect. I think researchers will always be needed.
Yeah, it makes you superhuman, right? It's scaled mediocrity, but if you have a really good researcher there, you're able to just tenfold what you can do. So it sounds like historically, specialists, people that are really fine-tuned at specific aspects of the research process or specific needs. Then, as we morphed into what present day is, it's become more bigger picture and how do you connect the dots and how do you inform decisions and bring people together to create a unified vision. And then in the future, I know we just started touching upon that, but I do think, you start hitting at that of like, what does the future look like, and what the future will be in terms of what research and capabilities, and where you're seeing Ford or others lean in. Seems a lot more AI centric. But anything else that comes to mind in terms of future aspects of research, or even how you're utilizing your past experience and bringing that towards what future optimizations could be in your role?
Yeah. I think it's bringing it together is really it. It's just taking everything you know, and that's why I think it helps to have quote unquote an unconventional background. Having that different mindset and that different background really helps bring people together in a new way. When we're looking at our team, I've got people who have a psych background, I've got software engineers, we have straight up researchers, I have industrial designers. We're all those different things come together to build a building block of a new way of looking at things. I don't think of it as a conventional thing at all. I don't want to be in this box. We want to come with that variety, I think. Is that, am I answering this question at all? I feel like I'm not.
No, yeah, yeah, you are. I think it's the other lens is, you're in charge of building teams now, right? Like as we grow in our tenure, we go from doers to, help teach and master and teach others around us, to now, forwarding and inputting into the industry, right? I know you've done series of talks and thought leadership, but also now you have teams of your own that you've helped build and hire and coach, and you don't come from the traditional researcher, whether that be academia to research, or grow naturally up through a research funnel, like some have, or gone to a boot camp like so many have, right? As a hiring manager, as someone in the leadership role at a Fortune 50 company, what are you looking for? How has your unconventional role and kind of trajectory inputted what you're looking for in candidates or other personnel to build your teams?
Yeah. I'm looking for people. I call it the beer test. We can call it the coffee test, whatever you want to call it. I am looking for someone that I can have a casual conversation with. Brett and I have had many casual conversations, many work-related conversations, but someone I can be candid with, and someone who is going to be candid with me. I really want someone who's going to call me out if I do something crazy or something not good. But I also want them to be comfortable with me calling them out. I think of it as active criticism and positive feedback. We don't want the negative. Um, I think of the criticism is that negative feedback, but I don't want to call it negative feedback. I call it active criticism. It's how can we be continue to get better, and that's what I think of that active. So when I'm building that team, is can we have these candid, casual conversations, or can I give you feedback and you're going to be accepting of that feedback, and vice versa? Do you feel comfortable with me? I don't want it to be a formal relationship between me and my team. I want them to be comfortable coming to me when something's bothering them about anything, be it about me, be it about something at work. What can we do together as a team to solve that issue and make things better? And then when I'm hiring, I also am not looking for that traditional research background. I've got a pile of resumes that we're going through right now. Do I want you to know how to do research? Yes. But as Brett mentioned, there's boot camps out there. Can I train you to do research? Most likely, yes. And my team isn't even all extroverts. I am an extrovert, as you may have noticed, but my team is not. We have a handful of introverts, and they're still great at doing that research. Some of them still even enjoy moderating, which is very stressful on someone who's an introvert going out there and interviewing people all day long. But sometimes they make great moderators because they know when to poke, and they're really good at letting you go when you don't need to and moving you on to the next thing. So I have a team of very diverse backgrounds. Other things I look for, other than, you know what research is, we look for different types of research, foundational research, strategic research, qualitative versus quantitative. I want a team that can do everything. I don't want a person that can do everything, though. I don't want a jack of all trades. I want people who specialize at least in one or two of those areas and then know a little bit about the others so they can support other team members. So my foundational person, mm, may not be an expert in the usability test, but do they know enough that they can support my usability person when they're drowning? Yes, that's what I'm looking for. I don't need you to be an expert in both. Do we have people who are great at everything? Probably. Um, but that's not what my goal is. My goal is to build a well-rounded and then balanced team of a variety of backgrounds and skill sets.
I think something you talked about earlier in our conversation, which was imposter syndrome, right? I think in my roles, morphing into the different positions I've been in, definitely feeling that, definitely seeing that, right? But, coming from a non-research background and then you're dropped in with these experts that are really good at usability or quantitative research or qualitative research and specific methodologies, and you're managing them, and you're not a traditional researcher. Could
Mhm.
you talk about how you've managed that imposter syndrome, how you've managed you don't know the answer to how to do a Kano analysis, right? Or
Yeah,
a sequential monadic survey or something along those lines.
yeah,
But your team is pushing that up to you and saying, hey, can you review this? This is going in front of executives tomorrow. How have you managed that? How has, coming from that non-traditional role, your thoughts on kind of that experience?
yeah. I'm one of those people, I hate making up answers and I hate when people make up answers. So if I don't know the answer, I will straight up tell you, I don't know. Let me look into it or let me find out more. I will go find the person who knows. So yeah, there's research methodologies that I'm not an expert at and I don't plan on becoming an expert at. And what I do is I work with that team member, like, hey, you want me to present XYZ, or you're going to present it. Let's get the right people to review this data together to make sure what we're showing is accurate. Is it statistically significant? I know exactly who I'm going to. I sent someone this morning. I'm like, oh, you need statistical significance? Go talk to X or Y. That's who can tell you I can run a Z test because Google can help me. But am I going to be able to tell you how well it was and if that was something we needed? No, but I know I think that's part of being at a big company. And that's one of the perks of being at a big company is I can find you the right person who can review that data, review that PowerPoint, who can help you run that data if that's what you need. I'm going to turn these slides off because I really am not using them
Yeah.
unless people want to stare at my screen. But
Same mindset of obviously, as that manager, but also, coming up the ranks. Where did you want to specialize in? What actually, I know we talked about it a bit of like making things easier, and I think back. I think he's actually on today, but my first boss in research, right? We were doing a lot of medical work. We talked about going into doing some ethnographies, and at the time we were doing some pre-filled syringe. And this mother used to mix all these different kinds of medications together and take out a syringe and then inject and whatever. And the way her daughter viewed her, right? Embarrassed to bring friends at home, and this mom was the monster that had to mix all these different potions together. And then we came into the house and we're testing this pre-filled syringe. She could go to the bathroom, click the syringe, put it in a safety disposal, and then walk out. And he was like, "That's what we're doing. That's UX. That is the gravity of the situation." Hearing a lot of that excitement or passion in your voice of, I have a niece that is driving this, 2-ton vehicle, or my father that is, X age and he now needs to be able to utilize the infotainment system so quickly, or else, then he's distracted, or whatever that might be. But what was the aha moment for you of like, hey, I'm really doing something awesome and really cool, and I want to try to see how I can make this my full-time job.
so from going into Ergo, I had that aha moment. And I had it again with the UX. So like going into Ergo, that aha moment was when I was seeing people get hurt and then I was able to fix that. So my minor was biomedical engineering. So I do have a little bit of a physiology background and understand the human body, the muscles and tendons and how they all work together or don't work together if you're not being safe about it. So my aha moment there was seeing someone be like, oh, my back doesn't hurt anymore. Like I finished a shift of work and I don't need to go home and soak in a hot tub or get a massage pillow out or anything like that. For UX, it was a little bit different. It was, like I said, I was kind of thrown into that field. I didn't have a choice. I
Hmm.
came to work one day and this is what I was doing. And I had told myself I will give it a year. If I like it, I'll stay. If I don't, I'll leave. For me, big aha moment was the first research clinic I was at. Watching people struggle with what I thought was a simple task. So before we went, we had come up with 3 designs on how to save a preset. So
Hmm.
like you find your favorite radio station, I want to save it. We all were like, this is it. This is common sense. We can do it. We don't need to test it. This one of the three designs is the best design. My aha moment was when I got to the research site and it failed miserably. The one that we all, the experts in the field, thought was going to be the best one wasn't it. And that was my aha moment of, I need to do this. I need to show with data that it, just because I think it's the right one doesn't mean it's the right one. Data is there, people are there doing it in the real world while driving versus sitting at my computer. This screen is perfect. Yeah, I can save a preset. No questions asked. So that was my aha moment of, huh, we need people to actually people and do
Yeah.
it the way they would do it.
And you spoke to data in the aspect of, I'm sure we all have different stakeholders that resonate with different kinds of data, right? The qualitative, the quantitative. Based off your experience, where have you seen the ability to articulate things that resonate with engineers, right? Versus product versus other stakeholders that you have? I think you guys feed up to a design team, right? How have you utilized your different background, your voice, your experience to find a way to communicate or articulate those findings in a way that's going to resonate with either something that was in your past role or roles that you were adjacent to, right? Research versus design is the
Yeah.
adjacency, the engineering, in your historical experience.
And so when I put a report together, it's actually the same stuff reiterated maybe three different ways
Mm,
because of who I target market is. Like you said, I report to a design team, but I've got engineers, I've got designers that I'm also looking at this data. So for the engineers, I've got bar charts, I got pie charts, I got graphs showing that quant data. Okay, well, our average Likert score was this, or 75% of people wanted this, or whatever it might be. And then for the designers, usually I take their screenshot of their center screen or their cluster screen or whatever it is, and kind of mark that up of where people went to do a task. Sometimes it's a heat map. Um, Other times it's like people have no idea what this icon means and it'll just be a circle around a button, but I will make that more design related. And then for the executives, I have a summary slide. I call it TLDR. Too long, did not read. I
mm,
mean, we have that slide. It's 5 bullets of this is your takeaways. My boss calls it the so what. He's like, whenever you put a report together, I want a so what. What do I do with this data? Why did we do it? So for the executives, there's the TLDR. This is the so what. If you go a little bit farther, you'll see some bar charts and graphs. If you go a little bit farther, you'll see some images. Not everything fits into a bar chart. Not everything's qualitative or quantitative. Sorry, a lot of it is qualitative. So then you get those verbatims. I will put those verbatims together. And what I will do with that verbatim is I will count how many people said one thing versus another to get some sort of quant out of it if I need it.
mm.
Other times I flag those good quotes, as we call them. They're positive, they're negative. Either way, they're a good quote to make a story. And I think that's what my reports do is it makes a story to show this is what you want to do with it. And I
Yeah,
feel like that's how my background taught me to do it. Like I started as an engineer, I started with bar graphs and charts. And then when I did Ergo, I was doing more of that physical pictures and things like that. And then as I've gone into management, I'm doing those bullet points. So that those career progression kind of fits into that report and the style I report out now is how do I touch every single one of those people in that field?
yeah, makes sense. And then I guess shifting gears, this can be our last kind of portion that we'll discuss. We are coming a bit on time, so I want to give some room for question and answer. But um, you know, advice to those wanting to get into the industry, feedback of the current state of how to best get into the industry, kind of riffing off that sense of, hey, I'm a new researcher. I don't have experience. I do have experience in these different areas, marketing or engineering or wherever it may be. How might I, based off of Susan's advice, get placement into or get able to get into a role like you have there?
I think it's start anywhere you can. Start with mini research projects. There's a lot of places out there where you can do freelance work, or you that need just a one-off. I don't let your background or your career stop you. If you've been a teacher for 100 years, hopefully not that long. Teachers need a break. But if you've been a teacher for 20 years and you suddenly realize I want to go into research instead and do UX, you've been doing it. Every career out there has been working in some way of digging. So take that background and figure out what part of it you can apply to research and put that on your resume. Make that your tagline of, as a teacher, I was able to probe students into understanding why these math equations were whatever. I don't know. I'm making things up, but make that your tagline on your resume. So even if your background isn't coming from a research background and you want to get into it, I would make that. And then now if you're a somewhat experienced researcher and you want to get into more and you're looking for a new career, switching companies or whatever, I think you need to make that portfolio instead of just the tagline on your resume. Go ahead and put a whole bunch of black squares in what you can't share, whatever secret information. But if it's already out there, get it out there, make that portfolio, make your case of this is the research I've done. This is where that research was used. I think that's what I look for a lot in interviews is not just the research you did, but the impact your research had on your industry or whoever your next person in line was. You may not have impacted Brett, but you may have impacted your manager or your designer or whoever it might be. So, what did you do with that research? Or what did someone else do with that research? I would say is even more important than what you did with that research. What did someone else do with your research? And that's what you want to push as you look for that position.
Mhm. Huge on the impact and
Yeah.
we can design a button that solves world peace and put it in Japanese, and I don't speak Japanese, neither do you. So, how is that going to make impact? Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll open it up to Q&A, and just any questions you might have for Susan about her current role, about some of her processes, workflow, experience, or even prior roles.
Yeah.
We'll kind of open that up. I know we have the YouTube open as well, so anything that's filtering in there. But yeah, so I'll throw it over. If not, we can give you guys some time back. And appreciate everyone joining and hope to see you at the next one.
I have at least one question. Come on.
If not, I'm probably gonna just make Bill come up with a question. So
There you go. My favorite color's blue. If you come to Michigan, the best ice cream spots, Dairy Go Round. I don't know. Someone's got a question.
if not, it'll be us just nerding out about Oshkosh.
Yeah, airplanes. I did watch the night show. It was pretty cool. Anyone else into airplanes?
I think Gavin, you have a question. Would you want to put that into the chat? I don't think we're able to let people open up.
Are you using AI for open-end analysis? So that one's from Kimberly. Um, yes and no. So I use AI to more so just summarize verbatims, summarize findings. Sometimes I'll put the quant in there as well as the qualitative and ask it to summarize both together. I don't usually ask it to hypothesize or recommend based on the data. I take that data and work with my team to do that.
We're using it at times on our end. Again, we do quality checks with our personnel. So, utilizing just coding on the back end, but doing a lot with our screeners when we recruit, doing a lot with some open-ended so diaries, but, quality checking and making sure that we are going back and seeing that. So, don't completely trust it at times. There's been a lot of hallucinations and feedback, but yeah,
I'm gonna do that quality check. I think that gut check is the most important part.
yeah, yeah.
Fact
We
check,
did
gut check. Yeah.
We had a non-related question about have you ever tried hummingbird cake? I know you are a big baker, so
I have made a hummingbird cake, yes. Someone requested one of my team members requested one for their birthday one year. That is not an easy cake to make. I made the mistake of deciding to shred the carrots myself. That took way too long, and then getting all the water out of the carrots. For those of you that don't know what a hummingbird cake is, it's like a coconut or a carrot cake with like a cream cheese frosting, and then there's nuts in there, and then it's got toasted coconut on the outside.
another auto-specific question. Seeing a lot of innovations in auto come from Asia. Wondering if we are on the cusp of a major changes in the driving and passenger experience.
So I've driven a couple of those Asian cars. We may or may not have some here. But I've only been able to drive them close on close tracks because they're not approved to be on US roads. The tech is pretty interesting, but I haven't seen anything that like blows my mind that we aren't there or close to. I can't say too much about that one, but I don't think that they're going to blow us out of the market. No. I think that we still have a fair market share. There was a second part to that, wasn't there? Or no?
No, just wondering if we're on the cusp of any major changes, but
Okay.
sounds
I
like
don't know.
we're on parity. And I know
I think so.
there's we all read the news and see how uh I guess factories are being shifted back to the US in different areas, right? Chevy's shifting, I think, to Indiana, and whatnot. But I'm sure we'll see production in different lens.
Yeah.
Different one from YouTube. Do you find that there are more and more people outside of research looking to break into research?
I do. I noticed that a lot more lately, actually. A lot of the resumes I see where the people I've talked to, I will sub in at a class once in a while at the local community college. And there's a lot of people in there who don't have a research degree like I do, and I think it's great. More people are breaking into this field. I asked why, and they just people didn't know it existed. I didn't know it existed when I was an undergrad. So I think that's part of it is people realize as we get more into technology and screens, people are understanding that there's more out there on the usability of these things. I get on an app sometimes, and the first thing I do is complain about the user interface and how much I hate it. So someone else who hates it is probably going to go, I'm going to go make that better. Oh, there's a whole field for it. Let's go do that. So,
Yeah. I think we're seeing the same, right? The market is oversaturated right now with talent from boot camps, talent from all these layoffs and these major tech companies. Um, but definitely seeing there's a want to join and enter the research space. Some of it is fueled by like we get to talk to people and make things better and make things better for the world. The other stuff is the innovation that you spoke to, right? Going on Gavin's question is what is all the cool stuff that's happening that is behind the scenes that you have exposure to that the general public doesn't, and what a cool job to do. And then I think also a compensation point, right, where it is very much a white collar job, and it does pay well right out of school with little to no experience, and as you continue to increase in your experience and time within the industry, you're sitting at a good salary that earning and learning and also enjoying what you do is a pretty sweet spot to have.
yeah. Said enjoying what you do is the hardest thing to find, I think.
Indeed. Yeah.
I, I mean, I may or may not be able to make more doing something else, but would I be happy with it?
Yeah. Awesome. Look forward to the 28th of August. We have our next webinar. It is with the founder of 2020 Financial and his daughter, who is now a Google researcher. So they'll be going back and forth about their experiences on, his tenure as a researcher, her entering the research market, and what that looks like. But Susan, I appreciate the time. Always love the conversation and the candidness and the opinions that you have, and love being able to nerd out about research methodologies, airplanes, dogs, everything
Oh
with
yeah, we
people.
didn't talk about the dogs. But thanks for having me, Brett. I really enjoyed doing this. It was great to talk to people. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Take care and reach out if you need anything in terms of Accelerant and any projects you might have upcoming. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.